When you live as remote as I do and you find out that you don't have any flour tortillas left in the fridge, you learn how to make them. I was shocked at how easy it is. Welcome to The Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. Today we're gonna make simple homemade flour tortillas. And I started making them myself once I realized how easy they are to make and how much better they are than store-bought. So really, even though it's convenient, especially if you live close to a grocery store, to go grab the package, try making them at least once, because I think you'll be shocked at the outcome. I'm gonna make a small batch, but you could make as many or as few as you want just by adjusting the ingredients. I'm not even gonna use a stand mixer, although you can, and it does make things a little bit quicker. But I wanted to show you just how easy it is to mix up right in a mixing bowl, no fancy equipment at all. 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of fine grind sea salt or kosher salt. If you're gonna use table salt, you certainly can, but I would cut that down to about 1/2 to 3/4 of a teaspoon, okay? 1/2 of a teaspoon of baking powder, not soda, baking powder. That is extremely important because there is no acid in here that's gonna counteract the baking soda. So if you use baking soda instead of baking powder, you're gonna end up with a really salty, metallic-y tasting flour tortilla. Not good at all. All right, then 2 tablespoons of any type of neutral oil you like, okay? Now, if you have a really expensive olive oil, don't use it in this, okay? Use something else because expensive, nice quality olive oils do have a flavor. So I really recommend something like avocado oil or canola oil or vegetable oil, whatever you wanna use, okay? And now the water. 1/2 cup of very warm tap water. Now you don't have to worry about the temperature. We're not using yeast, but I like it to be really warm because that's gonna help all the ingredients come together. And then when we let our dough rest, it just keeps everything nice and warm. It makes it a lot easier when you go to roll out your flour tortillas. Then just mix this up in a bowl. Now, if you measure out your flour, of course, you're gonna have exact ingredients, but I don't measure by grams or anything like that. I always go by cups. It's just what I'm used to. So I also go by how this dough is looking once I give it enough time to fully hydrate. And that is important because right now it looks pretty dry, right? But if I just went in and said, oh, it's too dry, let me add more water, I'm gonna end up with too wet of a dough. So what I recommend is just kind of keep working with it a little bit. When it forms a ball, even though it looks very dry, when it forms a ball and you don't have a whole lot left over, then we're gonna put it onto our surface. So basically, see, I've got one dough ball and then a little bit left here in the bowl. Take that out, put it on top. Now we're gonna do a little kneading. That's gonna help to incorporate the flour and the liquid ingredient, the water, mostly a little bit of oil. So we're gonna do that to make sure that we have the right consistency of dough that we want for this. The kneading is not so much about developing gluten or anything like that. It is really about just getting the right consistency for the dough. So I just knead it a few times. When you first start, you're gonna see it's kind of cracking, but wait until you see what happens after I knead it for about 3 minutes or so. Now, if you need to put some flour down on your surface, you can, okay? I try not to until I know how the dough is feeling, but if it's really sticking, go ahead and put some down. The goal of the dough is to have it nice and smooth, but also a little tacky, but not real sticky, okay? All right. There we go. So it is beautiful now. Love it. It is not sticking to my hands, but it is slightly tacky. Now, if you went to divide this and roll it out right now, you're gonna struggle. So don't do that. Grab some plastic wrap, or you could put it in the bowl and cover the bowl too. But what I like to do is just grab some plastic wrap or a Ziploc baggie, anything like that, and wrap it up so that no air can get to it. It's not gonna rise, okay, because again, we don't have that yeast in there. And then let it sit for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, we can unwrap. What I like to do is just leave this kind of open so that I can wrap it in between rolling each of the tortillas. Now, you can get really technical and you can weigh this out. It's about 12 ounces of dough, so you can weigh out 1.5 ounces for a 6-inch tortilla or 2 ounces for an 8-inch tortilla, whatever you want to do. I don't usually do that. I just divide it in half again, and then in half again, okay? So each one's gonna be about 1.5 ounces and about the size of a golf ball. If you make them too small, you're gonna find that you're just not gonna be able to roll it out. I'm making 6-inch tortillas here because that's what I like to use for a single serving quesadilla or shrimp tacos, which I'm gonna make a little bit later. All right, so once you have your dough ball, put a little bit of flour down. This is not the same as when making bread, okay? Don't worry about the amount of flour that you use. Flour both sides and sort of press it down into a disc, just like that. You can even put some flour on your rolling pin if you want, and then start to roll them out. How you do this is completely up to you. I'm certainly no expert at all. I usually just go one way, flip it, go the next until it is rolled out. And my goal here, even though I'm making 6-inch tortillas, I'm gonna try to roll them out almost to 8 inches because each time you roll, they are gonna snap back. Then you let it relax a little bit, roll a little bit more. The goal really is not so much the size, it is the thickness, okay? So we want them to be pretty thin in order to get a really nice tortilla. If you make them too thick, they're just too thick, for me anyway. If you start to notice the dough sticking at all, then definitely add some more flour. So I would say, I'm trying to gauge the thickness of these. I would say they're like, gosh, almost 1/8 of an inch thick is how I like them, okay? And don't worry if they're not perfect circle, okay? It's not gonna matter. So that looks pretty good. And that was 8 inches, and now it's shrunk back up to about 6. I'm gonna go back out just a little bit more. But that looks great. All right, so that's how you roll them out. Another test that I do sometimes is just hold them up to a light, and if I can see my fingers behind them, then they are thin enough. Now, you could do one or two things. You can roll one, cook one, roll one while that one's cooking, or you can roll them all out. And if you do want to roll them out, you want to place a little bit of parchment or something in between each one so they don't stick, okay? Or you can flour them pretty well. But I'm going to roll one and cook one up. So to cook them, I'm using a 6-inch skillet because that's the size of tortilla that I want to make. If you want to make larger ones, obviously use a larger skillet. I do not use any oil or any butter when I'm making the flour tortillas, when I'm cooking them up for the first cook. Now, if I'm gonna make quesadilla, I'm gonna add some butter or something. But for these, a dry pan works best. The temperature regulation is super important, okay? Too high and you start to burn them. Too low and you don't get that beautiful browning, okay? So it's gonna be an adjustment depending on your stove. I start out on a higher heat, probably like medium high, and then I go down and up from there, okay? So I'm gonna get the pan heated. And on my induction burner, it's 8, but that's gonna vary depending on your stove. So while that's happening, I will go ahead and roll out another one. Now you see I am creating a little bit of tension on the top just by sort of moving it into a ball like that. I do that just so it keeps its shape a little bit better, okay? It's not the same again as making bread, but it's the same principle. But now what that's gonna allow is for it to stay in a nice circle shape, usually anyway. All right, that looks good. Go ahead and throw this one in the pan. And then just let it sit until it starts to bubble up a little bit. Flip and let it go a little bit longer. I probably could have gone longer on this side just to get a little bit more browning, but it's gonna be fine. And now I'm going to take my heat down just a little bit. So I went down to 7, which is just a step down. And I may go down a little bit more. Watch the smoke in your pan, things like that, okay? Let's go ahead and flip and take a peek. Oh no, they're looking good. Looking good. And after you do a few of these, trust me, you'll be an expert. And there we go. First one's done. Put it in some kind of a lined basket or container, and then you can cover it up and keep it warm like that. And we go right on to the next one. Now I'm gonna turn my heat down just a tad here. So I'm gonna go down to 6 and throw the other one on. Perfect. All right, so our beautiful tortillas are completely done. A few of them got a little dark. Don't worry about that. They're gonna taste amazing. Now I'm gonna make a quick quesadilla with this. So what I wanna do is take the heat down to about medium because we're gonna add in a little bit of butter. You can either butter the tortilla or you can put the butter in the pan, whichever you prefer. Because the pan's hot, I'm gonna go ahead and butter the tortilla. So probably about, I don't know, half of a teaspoon or so. I don't even need all of that. I'm only gonna make a single tortilla quesadilla. So the buttered side back into a medium-high pan. Hear it sizzle. We're just making simple cheese. So we're gonna put cheese on half of it. As much as you want, really. And then flip, press, flip and press again. I might take the heat down just a little bit lower. So now I'm on 2, which would be medium low. So we want that cheese to melt. All right, once it's crunchy on the outside and the cheese is mostly melted, take it off the heat and let it sit for a minute, okay? Just gonna finish melting that cheese. We'll grab our plate. I'm so excited. I love quesadillas. My favorite are shrimp quesadillas though, with like onions and green peppers and oh my gosh, so many delicious flavors in there. But today we're gonna keep it simple. Hopefully my cheese is melted enough. Looks delicious. Oh my gosh, so crunchy, right? Now, it's gonna be a little too hot for me to eat, but I wanted to pull it apart for you. So yeah, we've got some cheese pull there, but I do have to let it cool down because I can't even pick it up. Then I'm gonna dip it in something that's probably gonna be kind of strange to you. This is a mango sauce. I'm not sure how it's gonna go with the cheese, but we're gonna try it out. Now you can use these flour tortillas for anything that you would ordinarily use store-bought flour tortillas for. You can also cut them up and either air fry them or deep fry them to make flour tortilla chips. All right. Oh my, wow. That mango sauce is delicious. It's actually a pretty good pairing here with the cheese. Enjoy.